Leaders from 10 Asian countries have completely rejected President Trump's big offer, causing serious trouble between nations. What did these powerful countries say that shocked the White House and changed the way countries deal with each other overnight? Number 10, Malaysia. Malaysia made its choice fast and without regret. In early 2025, Trump's team came with an offer full of billions in trade deals and building projects. But there was one big demand. Malaysia had to cut all security ties with China and join America's Indo-Pacific plan. For Malaysia's leaders, this crossed a line. They said their freedom could never be sold, no matter how much money was offered. Malaysia clearly said no, sending shockwaves through Southeast Asia. Instead of giving in, Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim made stronger ties with China, getting big investments in green energy and technology. Chinese leaders praised Malaysia for standing on its own, and the two countries signed more than a dozen new agreements. Malaysia's message was clear. They chose independence over choosing sides. This wasn't just a no, it was a clear statement. Malaysia refuses to be trapped between big powers. Even though the US now threatens trade penalties, Malaysian leaders stay firm. They don't want to be used in someone else's plan. They are creating their own future. Number 9, Vietnam. In 2025, Vietnam made news by clearly rejecting an offer from Donald Trump. The offer promised nearly $500 million in military help, but there was a catch. Vietnam would have to cut ties with China and let American forces control its important ports. To many people, this wasn't real help. It was using aid as pressure. The deal was trying to turn Vietnam into a US military base in the growing power fight in Asia. But Vietnam didn't even think twice. They pushed back strongly, saying their independence was not for sale. This defiance had quick results. The US canceled visa-free travel for Vietnamese officials, a move seen as an insult. But Vietnam didn't back down. Instead, they got even closer to China. President Xi Jinping visited soon after and signed more than 40 new agreements covering things like building roads and energy projects. Vietnam showed they weren't afraid to shift east. For them, survival means balancing, not giving in. This event changed how small countries deal with big powers. Vietnam's stand was not just about ports or money. It was about respect. The world watched as a smaller country said no to a superpower and meant it. It sent a strong message across Asia. In this new time, respect is more important than rewards, and Vietnam is leading the way. Number 8, Philippines. The Philippines became the center of big diplomacy talks when Trump's offer reached Manila in mid-2025. On paper, the offer looked good. More military help, better weapons, and money for roads and bridges. But the small print had a huge problem. The US wanted to build military bases across Luzon and Mindanao, turning the Philippines into a US military launchpad in Asia. For President Marcos Jr., it was too much. The Philippines fought hard for its freedom and they weren't giving it back. People hit the streets with signs like "No to neocolonialism in our land, our rules." The government firmly rejected the deal on live TV, and the video went viral across Asia. American diplomats were shocked. They thought the Philippines, a longtime ally, would say yes. Instead, Manila looked for defense talks with Australia, Japan, and South Korea, countries seen as less pushy. The timing made the rejection even bigger. With tensions rising in the South China Sea, the US needed a strong partner. The Philippines' decision ruined that plan and made other Southeast Asian countries rethink their US ties. The Philippines chose pride and independence over easy support and started a new conversation. What does real partnership look like in a world after American dominance? Number 7, India. India didn't waste time to say no. When Trump's team offered a big military and trade deal in early 2025, it looked good in the news. Billions in weapon sales, defense help, and better trade terms were offered. But the deal had a hidden rule. India had to stay away from Russia. For India, who has been a close partner with Russia and believes in standing on its own, this was not acceptable. India quickly answered, absolutely not. Instead of backing down, India used this moment to show the world they don't take orders. Prime Minister Modi announced new projects with Russia and stood firm in groups like BRICS. The US was clearly upset, but India didn't care. India's choice showed it would never give up its independence for short-term gains. This wasn't just about one deal, it was about India's place in the world. Even when the US hinted at delaying arms sales and trade talks, India stayed strong, building new ties in Central Asia and the Middle East. India proved once again, they don't just follow trends, they make them. Number 6, Japan. Japan surprised everyone in 2025 by clearly saying no to Trump's proposal. The offer promised big trade rewards and military upgrades. But Japan had to join a US-led plan to isolate China economically. To Japan, this was a trap, not an opportunity. Prime Minister Ishiba didn't waste time. He rejected the offer and called for a more balanced approach in Asia. The US didn't take it well. Tariffs came back almost overnight, hitting Japan's car industry hard. But Japan didn't panic. They strengthened trade ties with Europe, worked closer with South Korea and Singapore, and grew their role in world peacekeeping. Japan's plan was clear. Stay active in the world, but never let others control them. The Japanese public loved the move, seeing it as taking back full control after decades of US influence. Japan's decision mattered far beyond Tokyo. For years, Japan had been seen as America's loyal friend in Asia. Now, Japan showed that even allies have limits. By saying no, Japan protected its economy and reshaped how Asia sees its own power. Number 5, South Korea. South Korea didn't slam the door shut. They closed it carefully. In 2025, Trump's team offered South Korea an exemption from new tariffs, which would help their export businesses. But the condition was hidden. South Korea had to stop all high-tech exports to China and limit partnerships in AI and chip-making. For a country based on tech and trade, this was a direct threat. South Korea's leaders didn't blink. They said no. Washington hit back fast, putting steel and car tariffs back in place to pressure them. But Seoul didn't back down. They quickly boosted investments in their own technology, found new markets in Europe and the Middle East, and started quiet talks with ASEAN about regional tech projects. South Koreans supported the move, proud that their country didn't get bullied even by an old ally. This wasn't just about trade, it was about standing up for themselves. South Korea had always balanced between China and the US, but now they made it clear, they won't be anyone's pawn. They showed that real partnerships must be based on equality, not threats. Their decision reminded the world that real strength is choosing your own path. Number 4, Cambodia. Cambodia made big news in 2025 by turning down Trump's offer. The United States came with promises of new building projects and help with paying off debts. But there were big conditions. Cancel Chinese-funded projects and fully support the West. Prime Minister Hun Manet didn't hesitate. He called the offer a distraction wrapped in dollars and said Cambodia would not be forced to pick sides. The US expected Cambodia to agree. Instead, they got a strong no. Cambodia immediately expanded its Belt and Road work with China. Chinese media celebrated, calling Cambodia brave and loyal. US officials worried about losing influence in Southeast Asia. But in Cambodia, the government stayed calm. Officials said true partnerships are based on respect, not control. Cambodia's firm no sent a message to all small countries. You don't have to bow to big powers. With one strong move, Cambodia changed the story. Aid is not a leash, and sovereignty is not for sale. Cambodia showed that even small nations can be powerful if they lead with courage and clarity. Number 3, Taiwan. Taiwan's rejection wasn't loud, but it shook the room. In early 2025, Trump's team offered Taiwan top-level weapons, cyber defense tools, and more diplomatic help. But the catch was big. Taiwan would have to let the US control its defense plans and change its security policies to match Washington's goals. For Taiwan, a proud democracy always fighting to stay independent, this felt more like control than help. Taiwan said no, politely but firmly. Leaders in Taipei said they welcome help, but they would never trade independence for weapons. Taiwan had worked too hard to build its democracy. They boosted their own defense production and made quiet deals with European partners instead. Public support grew quickly. "We are not someone's client state" became a viral slogan in Taiwan. This wasn't just a no, it was a proud statement. Taiwan showed that even between China and the US, they could find their own way. Even when Washington hinted it might give less support, Taiwan stood firm. They made it clear. Taiwan's future will be decided by its own people. Number 2, China. China didn't just reject Trump's 2025 offer. They broke it down completely. The US promised to lift most tariffs, reopen tech talks, and invite China into new trade groups. But the price was huge. China would have to give up its South China Sea claims, pull back Belt and Road investments, and change its internal rules on surveillance and data. For President Xi Jinping, it wasn't even a hard choice. The answer was a fast and clear no. China wouldn't be told what to do, but they didn't just say no, they acted fast. China made new deals with Africa and Latin America, expanded BRICS, and hosted a major summit with Southeast Asia. Chinese media called the US offer desperate. While the US warned about economic punishment, China kept moving forward, confident in its power. This rejection was not just defiance, it was a powerful message. China will not be contained. They showed the world that real power is setting your own terms, even when it costs more. This wasn't just a fight between two countries. It was a sign that the world order is changing, and China plans to lead the next chapter. Number 1. Singapore. Singapore surprised everyone in 2025 by turning down a big offer from Trump's team. The US offered billions in trade deals, military tech upgrades, and special investment chances. But there was a catch. Singapore had to pick sides against China. For Singapore, a country built on balance and neutrality, this was a non-starter. Prime Minister Lawrence Wong made it clear. Singapore would not take sides in other people's fights. The rejection was quiet, no big press conference, just pulling out of talks and repeating their policy of neutrality. The US tried to push back by putting restrictions on tech exports, but Singapore didn't blink. Instead, they made faster green tech deals with Europe and grew cooperation through ASEAN. Singapore wasn't trying to rebel. They were protecting balance. Their decision showed the world that real strength is staying calm and sticking to your principles. Singapore chose peace and stability over conflict, and other countries quietly admired it. Now the question is, do you think these rejections were bold moves for freedom or risky bets that could backfire? Which country's decision surprised you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Share this video with a friend who still thinks the US always gets its way. They need to see how the game is changing.